you go to any of the major chains in this country, and as I don't think any of the other federal party leaders do their own shopping. I think this is a safe bet. Maybe now that Nicole Turmel is acting interim leader for the NDP, she probably does her own shopping. But Stephen Harper and they probably don't do their own shopping. I go to grocery stores looking for things that I want, and I want them to be grown locally and organic. Now I'm very, very blessed because I live in southern Vancouver Island, and we have Canada's longest growing season. And we have lots of great, healthy, local, organic foods, and I can get them at the farmers markets. But when I go to the national chains, this is my example of one thing that drives me nuts, is trying to find locally grown garlic. Because it isn't like coffee that doesn't grow in Canada. Every part of this country can grow great garlic. But if you go into your Loblaws or your Sobeys or whatever major chains that you look for, Dominion, anywhere you are across Canada, you go into the grocery store, the garlic is grown in China. It all looks the same, by the way. It looks really pretty. I don't know if they bleach it first. They probably do, because it tends to be so bright and white, it'll, make you have to put your sunglasses on. Garlic is something we grow in Canada. And why you can't find it in any Canadian chain store is actually not really that baffling. The major grocery store chains want to make sure that their access to produce is not climate dependent, is not seasonally adjustable, that they actually can make one contract with one supplier that's going to go all year long. So the access for local farmers to get their produce into local grocery stores is hampered by this overwhelming model of an integrated food system in which the cheaper produce, this is absolutely counterintuitive, the cheaper produce has the most carbon miles. It doesn't matter that you're having to ship it to your grocery store from thousands of kilometers away. Somehow it still comes out cheaper, which makes you wonder, how are they growing that stuff? In any case, food policy is very connected for Greens with the survival of local communities, the sustainability of local agriculture, and the profit margins for local farmers, whether they're organic or not. Kate's family happens to be running a big organic operation. Kate, what do you grow? You've got grain and cattle? Wheat and cattle. And her family made the decision to shift to organics when they had been doing, which for some reason is called traditional agriculture. I don't know why it's called traditional, because you can't really call something traditional that only was created with the advent of toxic chemicals during the Second World War through the research of Nazi scientists trying to come up with nerve gas. However, the fact that this material in small doses works well to control bugs is where we get what's now called traditional agriculture. But there are a lot of people that are farming in what's called traditional agriculture who would like to make the transition, and whether they're farming organically or not, as Greens, we want to see people be able to survive on farm, because if they don't, where's our food going to come from? There's some fundamental questions about Canadian food policy that are really brought into sharp relief when you ask the question, do we have food security? What happens if the trucks were to stop rolling across the border? What would happen to our grocery store shelves? Do we have enough food in Manitoba to feed everybody if the trucks stopped delivering to the local chain stores? Well, we would if we designed our food policy differently, but right now we don't. And that's food policy, but how, I said, it's very intimately connected with energy policy. Because when you look at the carbon impact of being dependent on an international food distribution system, on looking at international trade for food products of all kinds, you recognize that that is also hardwiring into our agricultural systems and into our food a huge carbon footprint. And that carbon footprint is not reflected in the price you pay at the store. Because as that wonderful book, The Value of Nothing, pointed out, Raj Patel's book, the price stickers on so many things lie to us. They tell us what you can buy it for, but they don't tell you what it costs. You start figuring out what it really costs the planet to have our food, our lettuces trucked up from California, our garlic flown in from China, or our spinach from China, or our apples from South Africa. I mean, I'm all for South African farmers being able to grow apples. But what on earth, what sense does it make in a country that can grow apples and garlic and lettuce to have it trucked and shipped and flown in from all around the world? And worse than what it is for Canadian farmers, what does it mean for African farmers? Many parts of Africa right now, because of the same model that says you're competitive when you're in a cash economy, you're competitive when you've got your niche, you're competitive when you're exporting. That's the cash economy. That proves you're creditworthy, you're okay to keep getting international loans, whatever. So in Africa, where you'd think the top priority of every nation would be making sure agricultural production is focused on local food security. But it's not, because the IMF and the World Bank have made very clear that feeding people locally is not going to impress the global creditors or the people who decide the credit ratings. So lots of African farmers are growing carnations and ferns and decorative baby's breath to go to European florists. Where are they going to get their food? Well, they get cash. They can buy craft dinner. It doesn't make sense. They don't buy craft dinner. But the idea, and why would they? But the idea that it makes sense to have a global economy that's based on redundant trade. That's another aspect, another new term. Redundant trade is when we sell lovely heritage tomatoes grown on Canadian farms and ship them down to the US, and as they travel down our highways, they pass the trucks from California bringing tomatoes back to us. Oh. This redundant trade makes no sense at all. That's just a slice of food policy. What's happening with water? Well, here again, the connections with, we have seen some, finally, I mean, gosh, I didn't think I'd ever see the day that an NDP government in Manitoba would finally decide to say no more mega hog barns.
Yeah.
It was one of the great disasters for water quality in Manitoba when Gary Dewar's government decided to overrule local decision-making and say that municipalities couldn't decide to pass bylaws to say, no thank you, no mega hog barns here. And finally, I mean, I'm glad to see it. Now, I should mention, I'm as the leader of the federal Green Party, I tend to have friends in other parties, and I tend to think that it's important to mention that we're not the only party that has good people in it. I've always, since he was environment critic for the NDP, I've loved Bill Blakey. I can't help it, I love Bill Blakey. And I always will. And I happen to think John Gerard is a wonderful guy. But we need green voices. And the reason we need green voices in legislatures and parliaments is that the wonderful people in other party systems